Joe, Imam needs the invite sent back to him. He's failing to log on. Okay, I'm looking at the time and it seems to be now. Joe, let me know when we are live. Because it's now 2 p.m.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, hello, Imam Kasozi. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm Joyce Katend. I'm going to be your host today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We were getting a little worried there when we couldn't get you, but it's good to see you now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Technology was refusing, but it is okay now.
Yes, it's good to see you. We shall be starting very shortly. As soon as the IT people let me know, we shall be ready to start. Yes. Okay. Just briefly, I'll just take you through what we'll be doing. I'll just do an introduction of all of you. And then each of you will be given some 15 minutes to answer some questions. Then we shall have the audience also ask you some questions. And after that, you'll have a final recap. So that is the basic program. Yes. So as soon as the IT people let me know, we are ready to start.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I'm going to request that we mute our microphones. Huh?
Yes.
If you can kindly mute your microphone.
Okay.
Thank you. Joe, let me know when we're ready. Okay, welcome everyone, all our viewers, to the second series of our webinar discussion on the apparent appalling state of religious freedoms in Uganda. We are live on webinar, we are live on Facebook, we are live on Twitter. So all of you watching from wherever you're watching, you are all very welcome. I'm Joyce Katende, your host for today's session. Just a brief recap on our last discussion, which we held, I think it was on the 16th of June. We hosted a seasoned panel of experts with whom we had a conversation on the impact of this lockdown regulation, on the lockdown regulations on the faith community. And when we're talking about faith community, we are looking at the church, we're looking at the Muslim community, the Hindu community, basically whatever you believe in, we're looking at the faith community. What is the impact of the lockdown regulations on that community? So we had that last week. And one of the things that came out very clearly in the conversation was this appears to be one of the many botched attempts of the government to put down our freedom of worship and to put it under the armpits of the state, giving little or no regard to the sacredness of our churches, our mosques, our various faith communities, the body of Christ, all kinds of places of worship. It's also interesting to note that we had a poll on that day, and the poll was on whether churches and other places of worship should be reopened. And the results were a whopping 95% of our viewers on Facebook wanted these institutions opened. On the webinar, we had 83% in favor of lifting the ban on the places of worship. Now, what does this mean? According to our listeners on that day, majority of us want our places of worship opened. And it's on that basis that we are looking at all those who are in positions of authority and of influence. Think about what is the regular Ugandan thinking and what do they want? From what we've seen, they want these places open. It's also interesting to note that the discussion evolved and different questions arose, especially regarding what is the role of our faith leaders, our political leaders, those people in places of influence. What are they doing? Are they just sitting back? What are they doing to push for what we, the regular Ugandans, want and what is happening in our community? So it's in response to that we have today's seminar where we are looking at drawing the line for religious freedom. We are looking at what are the religious leaders doing, what are our political leaders doing to address this current state that we're going through. And if you missed the discussion that we had on the 16th, please find the full episode on the Crown L Co Facebook page. Like I mentioned earlier, this is non-partisan, so we're not looking at are we following a particular party, political party? No. This is looking at the faith community. And by faith community, we are looking at the Muslim, the Christian, church, you name it. Whatever it is that you believe in, we are looking at you and we're speaking to you today. And based on that, we've brought a very nice bouquet of noble leaders from all fields, from the Muslim field, from the Christian field, from the political field, and even the legal field to join us today, as I'll be introducing them shortly. Now, once again, I'll just mention that this webinar is brought to you by Crown L Co Limited, and this is in conjunction with our co-sponsors, Sinbel Advocates and Kampala Young Christian Cooperative. Please be sure to visit their respective social media platforms and check them out. So for Sinbel Advocates, you can check out Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And then for for Kampala Young Christian Cooperative, check them out on Facebook and Twitter. And then for Crown L, it's live on Facebook as we speak. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm Joyce Katende, your host. So now I would like to introduce to you a very precious panel of discussants who are coming from a wide spectrum and hopefully covering a wider audience for us to be able to hear and see what are all these different organizations thinking. So I'll introduce our very first panelist, and that is Imam Ibadan Idi Kasozi. I'm going to request our IT person to put up his profile. He is the vice chairperson of the Uganda Muslim Youth Assembly, so he'll be joining us today. We also have Honorable Angeline Osege, who is the woman member of parliament for Soroti district. We have Pastor Uma Molinde, who is the founder of Gospel Life Church International. And then we finally have a lawyer who is a managing partner of Namara, Twenda and Company Advocates, Counsel Namara, Kathy Masiko. So that is our distinguished panel for today, and you're all very welcome. So just quickly, I would like to take us through what we'll be doing today. We'll start with each of our speakers having approximately 15 to 20 minutes to share their views on this topic. And then you, our audience, will be given an opportunity to ask any questions to any of the panelists. So use this opportunity, ask, and you'll get your answer. And finally, we'll have a round of remarks from each of our panelists, and that will wrap up today's discussion on drawing the line for freedom of worship in Uganda. Welcome once again. And like I mentioned earlier, I am your host, Joyce Katende, a citizen and a concerned citizen of our dear country. So what are the objectives of today's session? We want to understand what is the pivotal role of our leaders, our faith leaders, and what is the role of us, the faithful, in such crucial times? What are we supposed to do, and what should we expect from our leaders? We also want to address the role of our political leaders and decision makers in the fight for religious freedom. What are they doing for us, and what should we expect them to do for us? We also want to create awareness on how important it is for us to know that our religious freedoms are being suppressed. Are we just sitting back quietly and doing nothing? Or do we know our rights? And if we know our rights, what can we find a way forward? Can we lay a strategy on how to protect our freedom of worship? So welcome once again to today's webinar. This is the second in a series. If you're looking for the first one, please check out Crownell Core Facebook page for the 16th of June, where we had our first session on the impact of lockdown on the faith community. And so now I would like to begin with our very first panelist. I'm going to request our IT person to put up his profile. And this is Imam Ibadan Idi Kasozi, the Vice Chairperson of the Uganda Muslim Youth Assembly. Imam Kasozi is the Imam of Mawanga Mosque in Munyonyo. He is the Vice Chairperson of Uganda Muslim Youth Assembly, UMYA. He's also the coordinator of IHH, Humanitarian Relief Foundation in Uganda. He's a demographer by training. He's a part-time lecturer in IUIU. He's also a member of many other foundations, including UMBS, Amana Foundation, Bridge Foundation, and several other organizations. He's a social worker and political commentator / analyst who is regular in the media space and is well known for fighting for and advocating for human rights, Muslim rights, and their interests. Imam Kasozi, you're very welcome. Could you say hello to our viewers, please?
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen that are tuned in.
Thank you, Imam. You're very welcome to today's webinar. Yes, we can hear you. Thank you. You're very welcome to today's webinar. And I'll dive right in and just ask you, no one doesn't know your face. You are famous on national TV, on print media, on social media, and you have been known as the Muslim cleric that fights for Muslim rights and religious freedoms. It is very evident in everything that you do. And in the recent past, you have been known to vehemently oppose the religious faith organization's policy, a policy which many of us understand makes the state decide how faith-based organizations should be run and operate. We want to know, it appears that this is a clear demonstration of government overreaching its mandate into the religious affairs of its people. Now, my question to you is, what does this mean to you? You are one of the leaders in the Muslim community. So I think you can also speak for some of the other leaders in the Muslim community. What does this whole faith or religious faith organization policy mean to you, and how it seems like government is actually coming in and trying to regulate how you should run your organizations? Kindly comment on that.
Thank you very much, Madam Katende. I don't wish to speak for every Muslim. I want to speak for myself and those who strongly believe that I have something to communicate positive. Because I don't want somebody to say that he will not speak. I don't speak for anybody. I speak for myself and speak for those that I have worked with for some time. I think the first instance, whether government should register controllers, before we reach there, it is important for us to know the purpose of religion. Because the religion is different from faith, religion is different from belief. People who want to do registration of religions, they think they want to, they are talking about beliefs or some faith, some sort of faith. But for us who believe, for example, in Islam, that Islam is a complete way of life, therefore, it is a system on its own. It is very hard for me to be told, but I will be regulated by somebody in order to do Islamic aspects. Suppose in his registration leaves out some critical issues that form the basis of this religion. I want first of all to tell the listeners that, you know, the purpose of faith, or the purpose of religion actually, the purpose of religion is to help anybody or some person understand the perplexing issues that emerge in his life and he does not have quick answers. But because of faith and belief, he accepts them as they are. For example, sudden death. When somebody dies suddenly, everybody is shocked. But a religious person will not be shocked if you are religious. If you are in a Muslim, you just say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un. From the Almighty we came, to him we shall return. And immediately when somebody says that, then he has got the easiest answer that will make him comfortable. So in such a circumstance, until we understand the purpose of religion, it will be very, very hard. The second thing, religion. Many people want to tell me that religion is a smaller part of social life. Whereas the religion of life, and religion is faith and belief plus state. The Prophet of Islam is quoted to have said that ad-din Islam, he ad-din wa dawla. It is faith and state. Islam is state and what? And therefore, before you come to regulate it, you must appreciate its foundations. This now leads me for the 88 or 89, around that time. There was a drive to register all religious organizations or institutions, especially those that existed at that time as NGOs. And I remember, and I strongly remember, that for us as the Muslim community, we did reject to this because religion or Islam is not an NGO. It is not a non-governmental organization. The moment you say it is non-governmental, it means issues that pertain to politics and whatever, you are not supposed to comment on them, or when you comment on them, you will be accused of trespassing, which I think is not right. Therefore, I would say the reason why I am one of those who think that there is no need for the state to regulate the way I worship, I believe, and control my place of worship unless I am going to do something criminal. They shouldn't have that, because the moment they bring it in, then we are going to conflict because we have different values. We have completely different values, or the way we interpret matters and we look at them differs completely, and therefore we are going to clash. So That gives me a strong foundation. Me, Imam Kasozi, as a person who has looked at society critically. Secondly, the purpose of religion, society, is to interlink them, to ensure that there is that social connection that connects them, the human beings and their creator, so that they understand that on earth we are visitors. And a visitor, when you visit somebody, like we have visited you on this forum, after 2 hours you are going to say bye. Even if we want, you will close. So a visitor remains a visitor. Therefore, I am thinking critically that before anybody thinks of establishing a law that will bring various different faiths together, okay? And he thinks he will remind them together, then it will be very hard. That's why you have found that during this COVID time, we have a problem. People intended to say physical distancing, and they called it social distancing. Okay? In terms of physical, I am far away from Madame Katende. But in terms of social, we are now eating, because society and humanity is the four fundamental social processes that matter a lot to human beings. Two of them, one is interaction, the second one is cooperation. And therefore, if you say you are going to distance them socially, it will be very hard. Because that's why, to me, I strongly believe they meant physical distancing. That's what they said, 4 meters from each other. You see, if I am 4 meters away from you, it doesn't mean that I cannot relate with you socially. But physically, I may not. But socially, we shall relate. Even our communities, our societies, our faith, all of them relate to each other socially. The other thing I think that was misunderstood, especially either by the leaders or even by us, the religious leaders, is that we defined closure of congregational prayers to mean close of our places of worship. I want to tell you, I have never closed my mosque. I only stopped congregational prayers where the numbers would cause the problem according to the SOPs that we are given. But I even also strongly believe, that's why, for example, if you asked me, should we open the mosques? My answer would be yes. When we open, how do we do? We do exactly like people are doing in the markets, in the car, we put the social distancing, but people come to the what? I have told you, religion, its purpose is to answer perplexing issues. One of the issues, COVID-19 is a very perplexing issue. It has defeated, the scientists are still struggling. Those people who thought we are powerful politically, they are struggling. People who thought that wealth was everything for them, they are struggling. Okay? The only way of answering it now, we should have used our faith and say, oh, how do we go about this? In the Islamic faith that I believe in, the Prophet of Islam, peace be upon him, said that every disease has a cure. It is only the process of the ability of human beings that may lay that cure. The second thing, my religion also tells me to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect me against such a disease, okay? Such a disease, we said, those dangerous diseases. And therefore, if this pandemic, if COVID-19 is a dangerous disease, there is a prayer. What will prayer bring to people? It will bring to them hope, okay? It will bring them hope. Even those that will die, they will die hopeful because they will know that their Creator has tried them in that method and they have been consistent to His faith, and therefore they will get the reward for it without regret. But to a politician, to an economist, okay, who are the drivers of whatever we are doing, I think it leaves a lot to be desired.
Thank you, Imam, for sharing those thoughts. You have brought out some very interesting perspectives. You've talked about the fact that it's impossible to regulate. I'm trying to paraphrase what you're saying. It's impossible and it's not right for the state to regulate faith because it's a very personal matter. It deals with our personal beliefs and helps us understand some tragedies that happen in life, which can't be addressed whether scientifically but it needs to be addressed spiritually. So it's important that someone should be free to decide how to believe. And you also brought out the fact that the whole concept helps people with hope which they might not be able to get from the state, but can only get from having that interaction with their maker, the one who they believe has made them. You also mentioned something. We know that already there's a ban on, worship, congregating in places of worship. But you've said something that is very interesting. You've said that for you, your mosque is open. And for you, you're having, your congregants coming in and you're having, your prayer sessions at whatever, but of course observing social distancing. I'm wondering.
Okay.
I'm wondering. Maybe, I don't know if you can hear me. I'm wondering, is that something that you would recommend for other Muslim clerics that open up the mosques but have social distancing? And then also, in addition to that question is, if you're recommending that, what happens? Doesn't that mean you're going to have to be in the mosque the whole day? Because if you're going to observe about 20 people praying, yet ordinarily you had about 100 or maybe 2 or even 300, how will that practically work? Can you open partially, or we need to open fully? Because we can't say that, okay, it's available for these few people, but for the rest, let's wait our turn. Can you comment on that, please?
Natural processes have the way they will occur. I have said, I want first of all to make it clear that many people understood closing the mosques or the churches, okay, as closing them. What they closed to me was congregational prayers. They only said stop congregational prayers. That is my understanding of the whole idea. And whoever has an understanding beyond that, to me, is understanding it wrongly, because I could, and I have not called congregational prayers to come, but people come and pray, either individual and even telling them that, okay, since they have said that you can pick the virus from where you touch, let each of us, whenever you are coming, come with your small playing mat, place it at where you want to play and play around. In case, for example, if we have what the so-called, you see, they have used a lot of science, everything they are calling it scientific. Sometimes I am asking, what is the science behind it? I also don't get clear explanations because, unfortunately, because we are completely locked down, we are not given time to engage those scientists, those physical scientists, those of us who are social scientists or religious scientists. If we had engaged those scientists, would be having better solutions to many of the problems we are seeing. Therefore, I am saying, yes, we can open the mosque or the church the way we have opened the market. People come and pray. The only prayers that could be had for the community, to me in the Muslim community, is maybe the Friday prayers. But all the other prayers have a prescribed time. For example, now we have finished the Dhuhr. Asr will begin at around 4 and go up to 6 o'clock, okay? Depending on the numbers of people in some of these mosques or these places of worship, people can be there. And maybe probably even for you in churches, a bit easier, because for you sit on chairs and you can scatter these chairs here, there, and then people can come and sit there, because the reason, nobody does not want his life, okay? If the SOPs given, okay, the standard operation procedures are clearly displayed, people will understand. For example, if you came to Mawanga Mosque, as you enter the mosque, you will see a small thing, it has the following things: a telephone, a cross. Therefore, everybody knows when I am in the mosque, no phone. 2, shoes. Remove your shoes. Sometimes it's not written. They just show you. Even to the washrooms, we have some place to stop when you are going to the washrooms. In the washrooms, we have their shoe. You will find sandals or shoes there that will go to the washrooms. What is the purpose? The purpose to keep that clean. Whoever comes to this place appreciates that. Therefore, I am thinking that instead of saying, let us continue in a total ban, a total close of our prayer places because of COVID, let us educate the people. After all, the message would have sunk properly in the minds of the people, much more in this faith. I want to tell you, where I am in Mnyonyo, okay, when I walk around, the people who are not Muslims, we have been interacting with, they are asking me, one thing it is not congregational. They asked me, please, our adhan, because they use adhan for their programs. Okay? Mm-hmm. It is now morning, it is whatever. Oh, others listen to some of the talks we have been doing, those especially when we put on the outside microphones, okay, or loudspeakers. Some of them, they want to listen to this. So they're asking me that, if they have even asking me that in this COVID, Imam Kasos, you have not guided us. You see? Because on many issues that happen in this country, I guide them using the mosque because they know its purpose. So it is important, therefore, to ask let us, the politicians will tell you, don't put it when they are politicizing. I am telling you, nobody is interested in my health than myself. Is nobody, absolutely nobody. You see? So it's just a matter of understanding. Like you see, people come out, when you go to the bank and they tell you, mask on, you put it on. The moment I go back at my car, I remove it. It's some people who also are not scientifically well equipped. Even when they are single in the car, you see them, the masks on their mouth, on their face, you see, because they have what
Imam Kasosi, we seem to be losing you right now.
Why has it? Hello? Hello?
We seem to be losing you, but I think we've we seem to have lost the last bit that you were saying. But I think the message is very clear. You're saying that all of us already value our health. Let us open these institutions because we will be responsible for our health. We will make sure that the SOPs are there. Just give us the opportunity to open. And on that, I'm just going to pause on the interview with you. And I'm going to invite another of our panelists. I'll be back with more questions for you. Thank you so much. And now to our viewers, thank you. Now to our viewers, thank you so much for joining us. Like I mentioned earlier, this is the second series in a number of series that have been dealing with what is the impact of the lockdown on the faith community. And today we are looking at drawing the line for religious freedom. This webinar is brought to you by Crown Elco in conjunction with Kampala Youth Christian Cooperative and Sinbel Advocates. Please follow us. We are live on Facebook. We are on the webinar, Twitter. Please join us and please retweet and share and ask all your questions. Use the hashtag Freedom of Worship, UG. That is Freedom of Worship, capital letters, UG. Hashtag Freedom of Worship, UG. And now I would like to invite our second panelist. Like I mentioned earlier, in the first discussion we had, which we had on the 16th of June, there were concerns that maybe this whole forum is biased towards, just one aspect of faith. But as you can see, we have heard from Imam Kasozi, and now we are going to hear from another well-known speaker. This is Pastor Uma Molinde, who's the founder of the Gospel Life Church International. I'm going to request that his CV is put up for all of us to see. It's very extensive. One of the reasons we invited him here is we're looking at the faith community. He has experience in the Christian community as well as the Muslim community. So I would like to briefly share his profile with you. Pastor or Apostle Uma Mulinde is a Christian convert from the Muslim background. He's an acid violence attack survivor. He's a human rights activist and author. He's a pro-Israel public speaker. He is an ordained senior pastor of Gospel Life Church International, a commission-driven church based in Kampala, Uganda, East Africa. And to date, Gospel Life Church International has over 1,000 members, of which 35% of them are ex-Muslims. So Apostle Mulinde, you are very welcome. It's such an honor to have you here. Could you say hello to our guests, please?
Hello, and praise the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you so much. I'm sure you've already been following the discussion, and I'm going to delve right in and fire you with the first question. And the first question is, anyone who has followed you cleanly over the past few months knows that you have relentlessly unmasked and debunked any justifications that have been provided by government to lock down churches and different places of worship in this season. Now, recently, the president delivered his 16th address to the country on COVID-19 pandemic and maintained that these churches, these different places of worship should remain closed. What is your comment on that?
First and foremost, I want to appreciate your effort. All of you are in this work of inviting us and trying to advocate for religious freedom. And I want to appreciate the first presenter, panelist, Imam Kasozi. I greet you and thank you for your presentation. My take on that is that I think there is a kind of downplaying of the role of church in the society of Uganda. And this is not bad only for us who believe in God or who are serving God. But it's very, very bad for the whole state, the whole country. For instance, for a head of state or anybody to sit somewhere and be the leader of a country and begin to determine how churches, mosques should be run, it's a grave mistake. Because these people in churches and mosques and anywhere, those who are serving God, pastors, they have a call of God, not a call of man. They are not employed. They are volunteers. And when they are serving in mosques, they say, we are serving God, of which we all know that God is more superior than any leader. That's why a wise leader or a smart government refrain from clashing with religious leaders or religious freedom, because these religious people, these people who go to churches, they are worshiping a supreme being. That's why in Uganda, you see, we have martyrs. Why? Because those people, even though they were killed, it was a horrible act of killing those people, the martyrs, but still those who are alive, they are praising them. They are not praising the killer, they are praising those who were killed because they see that they did something right. Why are they thinking like that? Because they cannot think of disobeying God because a man has said. So I think here the government is making a mistake
Pastor Mulinde? Pastor Mulinde, I think we've lost a bit. Mm-hmm.
Are you hearing now?
Now we can hear you. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Do you remember where I stopped from?
You were talking about how... you can just do a quick recap, but you were talking about the martyrs.
Yes, the martyrs. They were forced to disobey. Listen, people in church, people of faith, are very good people because they can obey any government provided you allow them to exercise their religious freedom. But they can disobey anybody who tampers with their religious freedom. That's why I'm saying that the government is doing a grave mistake in this, is causing people to be forced to disobey. Because if this lockdown will be prolonged, people will force themselves into disobeying the government. So I think the government is not doing the right thing. And number two, spiritual matters are very important as far as a human being is concerned. For those who are seeing me for the last time, I am a victim of a horrific acid attack. It's one of the most horrific experiences in life. But through the process of treatment, I couldn't have been like the way you see me right now, but I was comforted by people wherever they could come and say, I am praying for you. To me, that served most than the medicine of a doctor. So we're looking at a community right now in Uganda whereby there is this scaring sickness, but people are being forced into being afraid all the time. The media is releasing fear. The government is releasing fear. The numbers are increasing. What is that leading to? It's leading to hopelessness. It's leading to depression. And, when you fear, even if you are not sick, you become sick. Now, look at a country like Uganda. People are afraid and people are poor. What is next? They will commit crimes. They will commit suicide. That's why you hear a lot that there is a raising of domestic violence because people are depressed. So in that perspective, I think that the government should have called faith leaders and sit with them, not to lock churches, but to get ideas, exchange ideas, but basing on what the church leaders see fitting, so that we put in place precautionary measures, medical measures, but not to stop fellowship within churches. Right now, we have Parliament is operating. Yes, Parliament has operated throughout. What's the difference between those who are gathering in Parliament and those who go to church? Do you know that those so-called essential services, they only serve a section of people? Not everybody goes to a hospital. Not everybody go to Parliament. But most of those people, regardless of where they are coming from, they will go to church. A church is a place where a number of people, young or old, educated or not, poor or rich, they gather there. So if they can preserve and protect themselves in Chikuo, they are the same people who are going to church. The same people who go in taxis are the same people who go to church. The same people in Parliament are the same people who go to church. That's why we shouldn't think that people who go to church are different from those who go to the markets. So, because they can, exactly. You want me to wind up now?
I have another question for you regarding that. You brought up a very interesting point, saying that, the places that have been opened are catering to only a select group. And yet when you think about faith covers everyone, because everyone deep down believes in something. Exactly. Whether you're going to, you're going to the mosque, whether you're going to a shrine, whether you're going to church, you do believe in something. So that is something that is deeply personal and deeply universal. So for the state to ignore something that is so deeply personal, if I'm trying to quote what you're saying, it's sitting on a time bomb. You're saying that it's ultimately pushing people to get to a point where they might disobey what the state is doing.
Joyce, so just to interrupt you a bit on that, I want to emphasize on that, please. It's very important to know that in my church, I have lawyers. In my church, I have doctors. In my church, I have police officers. In my church, I have members of parliaments. In my church, so every section of the population is represented in the place of worship.
So, in other words, this is the one place that needed to be. This is the one place that cannot be ignored. Wherever we meet in our faith, we cannot ignore that congregation. Which leads me to the next question.
Yes.
You are one of the leaders in the church.
Yes.
We've spoken to another leader in the Muslim community.
Yes.
Considering, what is going on around, what do you feel, what should be your role in this time? And also, what should be the role of us, the faithful, in this kind of situation? How do we address this battle that we are in? What should you as our leaders do? What should we expect from you? And also, what should you expect from us?
Exactly. So what we have to do right now is to tell government openly it's carrying a burden which it cannot manage without the role of places of worship. Look, if today I will announce that at 5 p.m. I have a service, I don't need money. I don't need mobilizers. I just need to say it. I have a service at 5. I'm going to be in my church. The place will be full, thousands of people. The government needs a lot of money to do that. Look, there was an example of giving food. And I said, why didn't government give food to faith leaders to distribute? Because they have people and they have orders. For a government will bring police, tear gas and everything, but still people will disobey. To a faith leader, a church leader, I just say it and people will take it 100%. So the government needs to come back to the churches, open churches, and ask churches how things should be done. In less than, in very short time, this problem will be solved. But in the event that the government is not doing that, we will continue to advise our people to pray, but even the people needs to voice out. Every church leader, including the believers, let us voice out and say, government, you are leading us to a dangerous end. Stop and consult us. Stop and consult us. There is a better way this problem can be addressed. Yes.
Thank you, Apostle Mulinda. You have really emphasized the fact that government should not ignore the amount of influence leaders have, whether it's church leaders or Muslim leaders. Like the example you gave, you just give one announcement and thousands of people will show up, whereas maybe government needs to incur a lot of money to achieve the same. And from what you've just said, you're basically informing and letting all your fellow leaders know and are calling them to action that they need to stand up and speak, to realize how much influence they have and not to just sit back, but actually speak. And we, the faithful, are listening to you. So whatever you tell us is what we basically will follow. So we need you to speak. Now, in light, connected to that, one of the final questions I have for you is, there's been all this talk about online gatherings, that you don't need to meet physically. Can't you meet online? And, some churches have been having online fellowships, whether it's on Facebook or different media formats. And so I want to know from you, what do you think, what is the impact of these online gatherings, in regards to your understanding of how the church should operate and how it was initially planned to operate?
Exactly.
Are they effective? Mm-hmm.
Exactly. The online gathering, they can serve in the absence of the actual physical gathering, but they don't serve the real purpose. I can give you an example of a first aid box and a hospital, an ambulance and a hospital. So a television, a social media, a radio is like a clinic or first aid box or an ambulance, and the church is the hospital, referral hospital. So if you have a problem and the problem is serious, you cannot just go to a clinic or to get a first aid box and say, I have got a doctor to be treated here on the street. So these online gatherings can just add value, but adding on the actual physical gathering in churches. By the way, a church in the Bible, a church is a family. A church is a family. And besides prayer, everybody say, we're going to go in your houses and pray. We don't only pray in church. No. Going to church and constructing churches is biblical. They are called places of worship, not places of prayer. Prayer is just part of what we do in church. But in church, we worship the Lord publicly. It has a spiritual meaning. Worshiping the Lord publicly, it has a spiritual meaning. And David said, I will worship you among multitudes of people. So it has a spiritual meaning. And in Hebrews chapter 10 and verse 25, Paul said, never at all stop gathering like other people. So it's very important. Even when Jesus was alive, he every day attended the temple and taught. Another thing we get in gathering in churches is teaching. The general reading, reciting, and preaching and listening to the word of God together. Another aspect is called fellowship. When you go into a place and very many people are worshiping God the same way you worship, it's very important. So these 2 or 3 gathered in my name, it's a basic level, but it has to go to as many as possible gathered in the name of Jesus. And then again, it's not the government to determine how churches should be run. They don't have to tell us how we should run churches, because we are not telling them how they should run government. They should know a politician that is not qualified to act as a religious leader. It's a mistake. And actually in the Bible, one man tried to do it. There was a service and the ark of the Lord had been brought from captivity. He did something that happened to him as if he thought, because, I'm a leader, it's a good thing. And he wanted to determine how the service should be run. Then he was touching the Ark of the Covenant and he got problems there. So church leaders need to be consulted. And then believers, we must know that it's our right. Nobody is giving us favor to worship. Actually, worshiping and religious freedom is a God-given right, but also it's constitutional. Also, it's automatic. You see, I get messages yesterday when I told people that you people have invited me here. I have got thousands of messages. People are telling me, speak up, man of God, because we are dying. Even if they give us food, we are dying. We need something which is more than food. So the government need to be taught. And we shouldn't keep quiet. This is a very, very important issue.
Thank you so much, Pastor Mulinde. You have really articulated the views of what the church leaders ought to do and what we as the followers need to do, and to realize that, our freedom of worship is God-given. Our relationship with God, whoever we believe in, is God-given, and no one external should be regulating it. So I'm going to put a pause on the questions I'm asking you for now as we go on to our next panelist. But thank you so much. We are so grateful to have you here.
Thank you.
Now, for those of us who are just joining us, we are on our second series on discussion regarding the impact of lockdown on the faith community. And in today's series, we're looking at drawing the line for religious freedom. What are our leaders doing? Whether they are political, whether they are, faith-based. We are looking at Muslims, we're looking at Christians. What are they doing? And what should we as, the followers, the general public do when it comes to what is happening to the faith community right now and the whole aspect of the lockdown on the faith community? This webinar is live on Facebook at the Crown L Core page, which is our host. And this webinar is also brought to you in conjunction with Sinbel Advocates and Kampala Young Christian Cooperative. So please check out our Facebook pages on Crown L Core, Sinbel, that's on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And then KYC Core on Facebook and Twitter. And please send in your questions. We're ready to hear them. If you're on the webinar, please write your questions in the chat room. If you're on Facebook, write them down. We are going to put them to our panelists because we need to get answers. And as you're sharing, please retweet and share. The hashtag is freedom of worship, UG. So that's hashtag freedom of worship, UG. And now we are going to our next panelist. I don't know if Honorable Angeline is on, but before she comes on, I'm going to invite our next panelist. And I'm going to request our IT person to share her profile for all of us to see. And now we've heard from a Muslim cleric. We have heard from a pastor. Now let's hear from, the legal fraternity. What is it saying about what is going on? After this, if we can get Honorable Angeline on, we'll also hear from the political sector. So for right now, I'd like to introduce Council Namara Kathy Masiko, who's the managing partner of Namara, Twenda and Company Advocate. She is a practicing Christian and advocate working with Namara, Twenda and Company Advocates, where she is the founding partner. She is passionate about human rights and governance issues and has worked with various stakeholders in promoting awareness and defending civil rights of individuals and groups in different fora. She's also an upcoming politician that will be standing for Woman MP in Tungamo District 2021. Please join me welcoming Council Kathy Namara Masiko. You're very welcome, Kathy. Please say hello to our viewers. Kathy, I think you're still muted. We can't hear you. Can you unmute your microphone?
Okay, hello everyone. I'm glad to be here. I've been privileged to listen in. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Kathy. It's good to have you here. Like I mentioned earlier, we have heard from the perspective of the pastors. We have heard from the perspective of the Muslim clerics. Now we want to hear from you, the legal perspective, from a slightly different angle, but also touching religious freedoms too. We are now going to have a conversation on this religious faith organization policy. Many of us have heard of it, but also there are several of us who are listening who have no idea what it's about. But we know that on the 26th of September, a city preacher who's known as the Watchman, that is Joseph Kabuleta, through your law firm, sued the Ethics and Integrity Minister over the infamous and contentious religious faith organizations policy. For our attendees out there, all of us who are listening and have never heard about this, please explain to them what the religious faith organizations policy is about and why you and your client was strongly contesting it.
Okay, thank you. The religious and faith-based organization policy is a set of rules being promulgated through the office of the Prime Minister, the Ministry of Ethics and Integrity. They are meant to regulate the operation of religious and faith-based organization. The policy is still it's still being promulgated. Actually, after that, after September 2019, when we put in a suit, the draft was amended afresh. So there's another draft policy for 2020. Now, this policy, well, it's a statement of intent of what government will follow in dealing with religious and faith-based organizations. We are against it for one reason, that it infringes on the right of freedom of worship as enshrined in the Constitution. To begin with, we know that Uganda is a secular state. That is well stated in Article 7 of the Constitution, which means that there is no preferred religion or faith, or the citizens are not inclined to practice a certain faith or a certain religion for them to enjoy their rights as citizens. Now, with this religious faith-based organization policy, it wants to put in place a set of rules, an acceptable way of worship, and acceptable practices that the faith-based organizations should follow, which will of course erode that article of the Constitution. Then it will, we have the right to freedom of worship is specifically enshrined in Article 29 of the Constitution, which allows freedom of every citizen to practice any religion, to manifest practices that are related to that religion or faith. That right includes the right to belong and participate in practices or activities of a certain religious body or group in a manner, as long as it is in a manner consistent with the Constitution. Now, this policy does away with this because it will put in place a particular way of, it will come up with practices that are acceptable to the state, which means some practices will be outlawed. And that's an infringement on the rights of Ugandans. And that should be a concern of all Ugandans.
Kathy, before you go further, can you just explain that a bit? Are you saying that this policy, if it's approved and it goes through all the right procedures, it's going to decide how all of us should worship? Is that what you're saying?
It will decide what is acceptable. What is acceptable when it comes to worshiping, to worshiping or practicing one's religion. And then, for example, it sets out to register religious and faith-based organizations. That means they will be vetted. So there will be a standard which such an organization must comply with for it to get registered. Now that's control already. That means if this organization does not, government will have put in that. And like to borrow from what Pastor Mida has just said, you'll see that this article protects the right of an individual and also a group. It includes freedom of association. So the policy does not affect a Christian. I am allowed to practice. It will stop me from joining a group or an association that I feel I should be part of. That is, if it does not comply with the standards set by government. Are you hearing me?
Yes, I can. Please continue.
Okay. I was going to say that the right, the freedom of worship is a fundamental right, and it's not granted by the state. Actually, the Constitution enshrines, requires the state to protect that freedom of individuals and groups, the freedom to worship. So now this policy seems to take away, to reverse what the law says. It will be taking away this freedom instead of protecting it. Now, when I was thinking about this, I was happy. One of the good things that I think have come out of the lockdown, when the policy came up and people came out to voice out their views about it, most of them thought it was a local thing. But now this lockdown has shut down every faith-based organization, which has woken up people who did not take it serious. Now they know what the state can do when it comes to interfering with their faith, with the practice of their faith.
So are you saying that the state is taking advantage of this whole COVID situation to actually impose rules and regulations on faith organizations, and that is why other places have been open, but the churches, the mosques are not yet open? Do you think this is one of the ways it's trying to do that?
Well, yes, I think so, because right now the law, what they are doing is unconstitutional, but there's a power of the minister, the power given to the minister to come up with regulations to guide us during this time. And the minister came up with regulations which stated that churches, among other places, shall be closed up to the 16th of April. But then after that, there is a provision which says the minister can always revise that, can always revise the rules, which includes revision. It can include revision of how long the places of worship will stay closed. So unless the public comes out to demand for this right to be protected, the state will utilize these regulations to keep the places of worship closed.
Let me see if I get this clearly. You're saying that in that policy, it's basically saying, yes, it's the state that will decide how long churches can open, when they can reopen. And if they've opened at any one time, you can have the minister come up and say, no, we've decided to close these institutions once again. Is that what's in the policy?
No, the policy does not say that. The policy does not. The policy talks about registration of RFBOs, which include churches. It talks about regulation and control of that. But right now, under this COVID lockdown, the Minister of Health, the Minister of Health issued a statutory instrument, and which is what closed the churches, the schools, and all those public places. Are we together?
Yes.
And according to that, the statutory instrument, it says statutory instrument number 52 of 2020. Under Section 9, it was stated that these places would be closed up to 16th April 2020, which has long passed. And then there is another provision which says that the minister may revise that will expire on the notification. So right now, although this is what they've been saying, every 21 days they come up and address the nation and say, "You've lost me." Hello.
Now we are hearing you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was. Where did I stop? Where did I?
No. Now you're talking. No, you're talking about the minister extending. Yet there has been a deadline of 16th of April when churches will be reopened, and now, the time is past.
It's past April. The deadline of 16th April has long expired. The same statutory instrument says the rules shall expire on the notification by the minister. That means that if we don't do anything, the minister can use this section in this statutory instrument to keep the places of worship closed until she or the government deems it fit to open them. So in other words, what I'm saying, it's up to the
what would you recommend? What needs to be done?
Yes, what I would recommend is for the public to petition anyone. The Constitution allows every citizen, every person who thinks there is an infringement of a constitutional right to petition court. That is the provision we went under when we filed the suit for the watchman. Even other members of the public, they are not prohibited from bringing such suits to force the judiciary, to get the judiciary to pronounce orders against government to open the churches and all places of worship. The other thing we can do is create awareness. Most people, like I said earlier, most people were not aware about the impact. They might know that there is a policy. Most of them thought that the policy is about born-again pastors. You've seen that kind of rhetoric in the papers everywhere. They thought that the policy, it's only the pastors who are against the policy. But this policy affects all faiths. And that's why I said this COVID, it's a bit sarcastic, but this COVID lockdown has opened the eyes of all faith people to know that control of freedom of worship is not only an issue of the pastors; it's an issue of every Ugandan.
Thank you for making that. Thank you for making that clear. One last question for you. Recently, President Donald Trump passed an executive order on advancing international religious freedom. I don't know if you're aware of it. And I think looking at that order, there's a portion I want to quote. He said that as stated in the 2017 National Security Strategy, our founders understood religious freedom not as a creation of the state, but as a gift of God to every person, and a right that is fundamental for the flourishing of our society.
Yes.
Now, do you think, does Uganda stand to benefit from such an executive order? Should it be of any concern for us, or is it something that we can benchmark on?
I'm sure Uganda is meant to benefit from this order. Why? Because of the relations between the two countries to start with. And when you read the details of the order, he has actually ordered USAID and the Secretary for State to come up with programs that will protect the freedom, the international religious freedoms, that will advance the international religious freedoms. And he's making it, it should be incorporated in all programs supported by the US. So definitely we should we should take advantage of this. All the activists and government, but right now the state right now is on the wrong side. So the activists who want to enforce freedom of worship should take advantage of this. He has demanded, actually, he has not demanded, he has, in the order, it is stated that the officers of USAID and the Secretary of State Department should concern themselves with any people whose rights, freedom of worship is being infringed on. They should take it up. They should be able to follow up. He has provided a budget. He has ordered that a budget is put aside for such activities. Mm-hmm. So we have the U.S. Embassy here. We have USAID here. It supports a big number of projects. Those would be good allies in this fight. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. So we should actually take advantage of it. It is a good step in as far as protecting international freedom of worship.
Okay, thank you, Council Kathy. I'm going to put a pause right now. We'll be back to you with several other questions. Now, unfortunately, we were not able to get Honorable Angeline. She has had network problems, but I think the panel that we have will ably answer many of our questions that we have. I'm going to ask Kathy to mute your mic for now.
Okay, thank you.
And so now, back to you, our viewers. You have been listening, you have heard, and already I see a number of questions that have come in, which I'm going to forward to our different panelists. But please keep the questions coming. Remember, as you share what is happening here, use the hashtag that I shared with you. Let me just get it quickly. Freedom of Worship, UG, that's capital UG, and share with as many people as possible. Remember, it's your voices. You need to be heard. So now my first question is going to go, there's a question that has come in, and it's specifically for Imam Kasozi. Imam Kasozi, I hope you're here. And this is the question to you. It says the Mufti, as the head of the Uganda Muslim Supreme Council and a member of the Interreligious Council, was among the faith leaders who were consulted before the COVID regulations of banning congregational worship.
Hello?
So do you think, can you hear me? Imam Kasozi, can you hear me? Okay, let me state the question again. This is from one of our viewers. He's talking about the time when we had, when there was the Interreligious Council that was consulted. Yes. So now, do you think that the Muslim views were duly represented, or that the leaders were left with no option? In other words, you were just called for a meeting, your leaders were called for a meeting to just rubber stamp a decision. What do you think?
I think I really don't know what to say, but yeah, the president in parliament was also discussing. Did you hear any general assembly they went ahead? What you may not know, you see, sometimes I don't want to talk about the presumed religious leaders of our communities because they occupy those offices. Their preoccupation largely these days is the safety of the position and the chair they are sitting in, not the issues that pertain to their followers. If you have been following, including even the calamities that we have had as a Muslim community, where a number of our faith leaders were murdered in a manner that is unexplainable. Have you ever seen the Mufti, if I want to say, put task, even the police or the government to explain some of this? They just end there. Therefore, it may make a difference. And that's why I don't want to antagonize these leaders who sit in those offices. Their preoccupation is like many MPs you see, or many other political leaders you have seen. Their interest is to keep their positions. As long as their position is safe, the rest could be history. The others these days also have become, they use those offices to fundraise from the state. And that's why I tell my congregation where I am that, for example, if me, Imam Kasozi, I was appointed a district card of Kampala, for example, tomorrow, I don't expect to get my transport from the president. I would expect that transport from the congregation. If the congregation cannot provide it, then I am not their leader and I will not become. That is me, and that is how I look, including even my local place where I am in Munyonyo here. If for example, I wanted a bicycle and I know my congregation can afford a bicycle, the moment I tell them produce it and they cannot, when I know they are capable, then I'm not their leader. And therefore, many of our religious heads in those leading the executives, and some few people, I don't want to use others, who are only saying yes, yes, yes. I want to give you a last example. I don't know whether in one of your on your networks you have seen, I have seen one Muslim leader lament about a land that has been sold in Zimbabwe. And he said, please come, let us unite and fight this. Then when he was concluding, yes, he said, yes, President Museveni, you know, I pray for you to be the leader all the time, okay? Please, this is something wrong. So I am thinking, the religious leaders did not consult their congregations, even the executives. Even if you went deep and asked the management, many did not know. It's just only a few that were in the house.
Okay, thank you, Imam Kasozi, for your response to that. You have basically said that they are walking a thin line, that our leaders are afraid of probably the powers that be. Let me ask the bold Apostle Umaru. This is a question that has come in from one of our viewers, Lamek Raymond Chimba, and he says, I want to ask Apostle Umaru Mulinde if it's true the president consulted a certain section of religious leaders under the IRC on closing the churches and other places of worship. And would it be that their continued silence is the reason we are still closed? Maybe to paraphrase, is he saying that they got something behind or under the table and they are silent, and that is the reason we are still closed? Apostle Mulinde, what do you have to say about that?
Eyeing on that matter, not all pastors and church leaders are members of Inter-Religious Council of Uganda. Are you getting me, Joyce?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
That's
all. A very valid point.
And actually, if we were to go into statistics, the leaders who are in Inter-Religious Council, they represent a very small margin of people in Uganda. Majority of pastors, they have issues with the way services and work is being conducted in Inter-Religious Council of Uganda. And they think they cannot prescribe to it until, things have been streamlined in a way how faith or religious freedom should be conducted in this country. Adding on that, we need to ask why they are silent. That brings a suspicion. But because I've been vocal on this, I tried to contact some of them. Unfortunately, when I saw the challenges involving into the closure of places of worship, immediately using my platforms, I began highlighting these challenges. But one of those leaders who attended was the first to challenge me on this matter. So people who are believers everywhere, that's why I said leaders who see the problem, voice out, but believe the presence of God. So don't leave it into the hands of those leaders, because they might be compromised. Another aspect is a possibility of the president, when he called this, like I said, or consult, there is the possibility that they were just told what to do and they said yes. You know, because one of the challenges we have with such kind of organizations that are not consulting other leaders in order to make this so much on what they call political want to be heard. The fact that there is a mistake that is going to say yes. But I wish I was there in that meeting. I could have told the head of state that wrong according to faith. Politically, it's good, but it's wrong according to faith. Because if there is a problem in life, and the best place when people are in trouble is a place of worship. So let us pray for those leaders, but let us not leave matters into their hands because they failed to handle it either through being compromised and they ignored the danger involved.
Okay, thank you for that question. I have just one last one for you. What this has also come in to Uma Mulinde. What is your take on conditional versus unconditional resumption of religious gatherings? What is your take on conditional versus
when they were opening,
unconditional?
when they were closing church? Yes. When they were closing churches, they closed churches without a condition. They must open churches with no condition. Pastors, we love our people better than politicians. People should know that. A man like me, every week, I pray and fast for my people. Eat food. We rise up at night. We pray many days and fast for our people. So it's, it's a kind of undermining the role of the church and pastors to society. But our members know this. They know exactly that nobody will love them better than their pastor. They know. That's why they don't trust politicians. One day I was watching and I saw president was complaining. People
Apostle, we've lost you.
But me, I can't count members who have left Uganda and they. Oh yes, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you are giving the example of the president. Hello, can you hear us?
The president.
Yes.
Yes. Hello. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. They were not listening to him because he had crossed the line. He crossed the line from politics to ordering religious matters. Nobody will listen now. And so they have to understand that as leaders, when they were closing our churches, we did not give them condition and they did not give us condition. We said yes, and the churches were closed. They must be opened without a condition. We will know exactly how to handle our matters. There have been an allegation that, people can come to church and you may not know where they are coming from. That is wrong. Church, we do profiling of members and visitors for a long time, even before COVID-19. We have been with arrangements in our churches, profiling members and visitors. And we have a well-laid down system of handling how churches should be conducted. So if people can go to Chikubo without any new condition, the same condition they have given to people in Chikubo, let it be a general condition to everybody. If you give extra conditions to church, which are not in taxi in Chikubo, that will be discrimination, and we should not allow it to happen.
Thank you so much. That's a good point. You're saying that churches were closed unconditionally. They should be opened unconditionally. Thank you. My last question to Imam Kasozi. In your opinion, this has also come in your opinion, what tools should the believers and the faithful employ to ensure that the status quo changes? What should we as the believers, what tools should the believers and the faithful employ to ensure that we change the status quo? Should we just sit back? We know we want the churches, we want the mosques open. How would you advise us to do it?
Thank you very much. In logic, when you have a false, or when you start with a false statement or premise, you will never have a true answer. Okay? The way these institutions were closed or asked to shut down, it was premised on a false claim. Okay? And I think this business of saying you have visitors, you have whatever, even when we have visitors, each person, wherever he lives, there is a place of worship, and he has identified himself or herself with this place of worship. He can go there freely, and then the visitors could be known if purposes of tracing is the case. Okay? But what means, number one, we should agitate for it. First of all, it should be the leaders to agitate for it. Because I'm telling you, many of us are really under pressure every time. They're asking, when is our Juma? When are we doing our Juma? Because people know what they learn from Juma or from the prayer place. It is not just a matter of words of belief and faith. It goes beyond that by directing them or how to live a happy life for their own selves, how to earn, where to earn, whom to deal with. Okay, so I would think that as we can start by agitating for it. Those of us who have voices and can speak, let us speak for it, because President Museveni, I'm very sorry, I don't know what people think, but I want to say, the President Museveni I have followed and I have known. He is so fearful, but he utilizes that opportunity to hoodwink others. And many people have fallen prey to his style of work. And two, because of holding two things, the carrot and the stick, as the English say. He has the carrot, whereby he can appoint you or disappoint you. Two, he has, he has used that opportunity to mingle things. And three, if you have also followed COVID, with all its facts clear, to me, much as he's praised for the direction he took, he messed up many activities of would be the technical people. That's why, including simple things that would be decided by departmental heads, okay? They come to the president. That is a very big risk. As a matter of fact, he somehow undermines himself, but unfortunately, many Ugandans, me, I am exclusive, and I know many others are exclusive. They have accepted to be taken in that direction. Therefore, I would think we can organize that too. We can maybe relate the various religious leaders from different platforms. We speak to each other and see. Then the lawyer was saying you can put in, I don't know, it has gone out of my mind, petition. The petitions in this country also don't work. They go to the parliament and sometimes they will be completely suppressed. Therefore, if we think it is the right time, then we go out. Let us also review the COVID cases we have had and those from the communities. Okay, how have we gone about them? Okay, then people will understand. Therefore, I think it is us to demand for it. I went for burial in Ntungamo recently, about 3-4 weeks ago, and the issue, because of the person who had died, the issue of this social distancing became completely impossible, and the numbers were surging all the time. So I think if people came out and asked for this, then we can move. The last thing I want to say, I have seen in the news, I have read and I have heard two spokespersons of forces, one for the prisons and one for the police, saying that some people are vandalizing government vehicles, which I think is not correct. They should not do it that way. And then the spokesperson of the prisoners was said, when we get you, you know where to put you. And we shall. I think those threats are not what we need now. What we need is to go back to be sober and say the best way is this. And then we do what we call a participatory approach, whereby me, you, and others that are not with us or should listen to each other, rather than thinking that we shall only go by the orders of the Public Health, I think, Act, and then sometimes we find issues becoming hard. You have seen, for example, the lady in Masaka who talked about the quarantine place and what she talked, and he showed the answer. Apart from that, if you get opportunity to talk, some people have been quarantined, okay? There is a lot they can say, but because of fear, then we are suppressed. But I think I did to call our people to begin demanding for it. 3, to say that if we are not allowed to pray and pray in something that can ask each other, then we should also begin to look at certain things in a way so that we are part of, like see, with Parliament remained working. Why? Because they want to use it to pick money. And every time it comes, ever since it has done nothing, only money, including something abnormal, approving an extra budget when we have only 5 days to the end of the budget year. That is unheard of, okay? But they are using it as a tool and they are using them as also tools, they have succeeded. Therefore, the people should probably, one morning, all of us wake up and at our various prayer places peacefully, and then we go back, and that will be a signal. If they don't, then we begin of other ways. First, I want to understand, does he have any belief? Because if somebody has nothing, faith, whether you forget your faith being the same with mine. No. Somebody who has some faith in him, whenever he goes back or she goes back to bed and contemplates, certain things change in mind. You see?
Thank you. Thank you, Imam Kasozi. You have been very clear. You are telling all of us, stand up and be counted. Don't sit back, but do it peacefully and within the law. So thank you so much. I will come to you for a final wrap up, but this is my last question to Kathy, our lawyer on the forum. Kathy, you have seen what is happening in different jurisdictions. You have seen what is happening in America. You have seen what is happening in Tanzania, our neighbors, Kenya and Rwanda, different countries are now even setting deadlines, and they're saying by this day they're going to open up, the churches, they're going to open up the mosques and all that. How can we, from a legal perspective and also being a Christian, how can we benchmark from that? What would you advise us? What can we do to move from where we are to where we want to be? And as you were sharing with us your answer, I'm sure all of us viewers, we've seen a poll that is going around, and we'd like you to vote and give us your opinion. Is the government policy to regulate faith-based institutions justified or necessary? Following what we are discussing, do you think it is necessary for government to regulate faith-based institutions? Over to you, Kathy. And once Kathy is done, we'll have a final wrap-up for today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Joyce. Now, again, I want to say this. It's up to us, the public, to enforce our rights. Rights, the law will give you a right. If you don't come out to enforce it, to claim it, then you cannot claim to have suffered any injury. Now, similarly, those other countries, what has taken place? We've seen them opening up and giving deadlines. It's because of the pressure they have received from the people. We need to exert such pressure on our government, on our systems. Imam Kasozi said the petitions do not work, but I believe they only do not work when they are not supported by the majority. But now, all together and put pressure on government to open up our space for freedom of worship. They would do so. Then the other petition I talked about is to court. Now, we have a tendency here in Uganda of waiting out for laws that are unconstitutional to be passed, and then we run to court, which is to get a postmortem. And you see, I'll give you an example of the Public Order Management Act, POMA. It was brought up, it was debated in Parliament. The public was quiet until it came into force. That's when people started running to court to stop it. Now, this policy, it's still a policy. Every time, for instance, the other time when we filed a suit for the watchman, they went back to the drawing table. So, which shows that once we put pressure on the government, they will do what? They will drop it. But we cannot wait for them to pass the policy to close up on our freedom space for freedom of worship and then come. Now, back to what there was which had a provision about a polygamous, a man who wants to marry more than one wife, who needed to get consent of the wife. I remember the biggest number of the people who protested against that bill were Muslim women. And it was with the policy. The policy Secretarians threw it out on the basis that it was satanic and unconstitutional. Then it went back to cabinet. Now cabinet will pass the policy when we are not aware, because very few people know of the proceedings of cabinet. And then it will be enforced in a subtle way. These guidelines, people need to know the effect, how far the effect of this policy will be. It will be implemented in let's say education, access to healthcare, everything, every service that is supposed to be delivered by government. We will have to comply with the policy on regulation of religious and faith-based organizations. And at that time, it will be too late for us to do anything. So I urge members of the public, Imam Kasozi, I want to encourage him, let him not lose, because we can't lose faith in our systems. Let him mobilize the Muslim community. Let them also put a petition. Let us join forces and petition court, petition government, petition parliament. And then we need to create awareness of the public. Everyone needs to know what this is about. I am sure most of them do not support it because they have not understood what the policy is out for and what the end effect it will have on their lives. But if we create this awareness, we can do it through all faiths. All faiths have different platforms and how they reach their people, members, their congregation. Let's reach out to them and show them what the policy is going to, how it is going to affect their freedom of worship, and let all of us join hands.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you. In summary, basically, you're saying we need to work together. Let's not sit back and wait for things to be done and then start reacting. If we see that there's something that is being brewed, something that is being cooked up, work now, stand up now, speak now. Now, I am going to give our panelists a final wrap-up. Kathy, I'm going to ask you to mute your microphone. I'm going to give our panelists a final wrap-up. Each will have a few minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, to give us their final views on what they feel about this whole discussion. How do we open? What is the role of the leaders? What is the role of us, the ordinary person? And what is the role of our faith leaders? What is the role of our political leaders? And what is the role of us who are watching? Are we just going to sit back, or can we do something about it? Like I mentioned earlier, this program, this webinar has been hosted by Crown Co. Limited in conjunction with Kampala Young Christian Multipurpose Cooperative Society Limited. Now, I just want to share a bit about what this cooperative society does. It has sponsored this event, but it exists as a tool to put together young Christians towards a joint goal of financial freedom. I'm sure many of us have felt the pinch ever since the COVID outbreak came out. Now, this organization has come up to try and help us bridge that gap by providing, saving products and loan products for all of us, which are easily accessible and at an affordable rate. Their current location, they have an office along Bukoto Ntinda Road. That's Ayubu in Sibira Plaza, and they're on the first floor. And you can find them in suite F18. So please get in touch with them for available, cost-effective, sources of income, especially when you're looking at financing your business that is going on right now, or even just basic living. So it's Kampala Young Christian Multipurpose Cooperative Society. Please check out their website, check out their Facebook page and Twitter, as well as LinkedIn. So now back to our panelists. We are going to go through the final wrap-up. Your final views. What do you want us who are listening to do? What do you want us to know about your position, and where do you advise us to go? So I'm going to start with Imam Kasozi. So you're going to be the first person to wrap up. I'm going to give you about 3 minutes. Please give us your final thoughts. After him, we shall have Apostle Mulinde, and then we shall wrap up with our counsel, Catherine. So, Imam Kasozi, you're up. 5 minutes of your final thoughts for all of us. What should we do? Where should we go?
Thank you very much, and allow me to quote the Quran. The Almighty says in the Quran, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن الله لا يغير ما بقوم حتى يغيروا ما بأنفسهم. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never change the state of any people until those people change what is in their own hearts. So if what is in our heart is to go, let us go and pray jointly. Let us go for it, and very certainly we shall achieve it. Secondly, I would like to ask our hosts, let us, I think, not only look at specific areas, look at all the areas, because abuse of our rights and infringing on our freedoms in this country, they started one by one, and every other time people did not care about the others, okay? The lawyers, since you are lawyers, part of this group you are lawyers, and those hosting you are lawyers. It is high time the law society of this country lived to the expectations of the people, because we believe strongly that you are a better place to guide us. And fortunately, every congregation, every group of people has this. Almost every household in this country is about to get a lawyer, because every other person, people are running away from going to study law. We hope probably people will wake up. But what I want to say is that today, religious freedom, tomorrow, press freedom, the other day, it will be business, and another day, it will be something. And in the final analysis, all of us will find ourselves helpless. Therefore, I am saying, if you ask me what to do, number one, such discussions are very important, much as there are limitations in accessing them. When we have them, after them probably, it is important for us to share on the various social media platforms some of the information that people have given, so that we can use it as an opportunity to reach out to the others. 3, to call upon our heads at different levels, okay? Whether they are political leaders, whether they are cultural leaders, whether they are social leaders, whether they are religious, to tell them that the importance of religion in our lives is central. And the moment it goes out of it, we shall find ourselves in difficult situations. The last thing is to pray to the Almighty. Pray to the Almighty, because to Him everything is possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Imam Kasozi. And now, very quickly, some 2-3 minutes to Apostle Mulinde. Are you there?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Hello? Yes.
Yes, you have some 3 minutes.
Yes, I have a critical observation that government's refusal to classify places of worship as essential service is setting a very bad precedent. And it might lead to a conclusion that regardless of ongoing COVID-19 events, the closure of churches or places of worship is most likely to be connected to some other reasons. Because countries like America, Israel, Germany, they had many COVID cases, far many than the numbers we have in Uganda. But still, places of worship were classified among essential services, and they were placed among those places which were given first priority when they were opening up, and they opened up. Actually, Germany opened less than a month. So on African continent, South Africa has a very big number of COVID cases, but the president of South Africa stood publicly and declared that places of worship are essential. And when they were opening, they were among the first to be opened. So I think as leaders right now, because we ask as leaders, what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to speak up, not to keep quiet. Because I would like to wind up with a quote. Religious leaders everywhere, I advise that we unite. I'm happy even Imam Kassozi said it. We have to unite and defend our rights. We have to demand our rights. Thank you, Council Namara. You have said it right. We have to demand our rights. Nobody will give it to us freely. We have to demand it. And now we begin with demanding the reopening of places of worship, because the quote I'm bringing is from one of the evil leader the world has ever seen. He's called Adolf Hitler. He said that the best way to take control over people, this is a quote, and control them utterly, is to take a little of their freedom at a time, to erode rights by 1,000 tiny and almost imperceptible reductions. In this way, the people will not see those rights and freedoms being removed until past the point at which these changes cannot be reversed. End of quote.
Perfect.
After reading one of my posts which advocate for the opening of places of worship, there is a renowned Ugandan church leader who sent me a text, and he said, I quote, Israel walked themselves into captivity seeking food. It is easy to give away our given rights, but very hard to regain them. End of quote. So
thank you so much.
We have to demand rights, and this is a risk, and everybody who. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pastor Mulinde. And Kathy, you have like just a minute or two.
Okay. Thank you very much. What I will add my voice to what Imam Kassozi and Pastor William said. We have to unite and do and demand and force the institutions, force government to return to us our freedom. This is because one of my biggest reasons, which Pastor Mulinde talked about, is government is entering, the state is entering into the space of religious freedoms. At the end of the day, we'll have everything that religious organizations are supposed to do will be sanctioned by the state if we don't take our stand right now, before the policy is actualized. So we need to unite, do the petitions, and follow them through to the end. We are. I was looking at the National Census Report of 2014. We have less than 2% of our population are non-religious. So everyone of the 98% belongs to a certain practices a certain religion, or at one time belongs to a certain religious body. So if we came together, we can bring this to the end that we desire, which is to return the freedom of church and separate state from religious issues. So I urge all Ugandans to unite. Yes. Have I used up my 1 minute?
Yes.
Tell Ugandans to unite. Let's share the policy widely so that everyone knows what it is about. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Thank you so much to all our panelists. You've been awesome. Thank you to all of our listeners, those who have sent in your comments and shared with your teams. Thank you. Thank you to our hosts, Crown Elco, to the Young Christian Cooperative, and to Sinbel Advocates. Thank you so much. The message to take home is stand up and be counted. Let's unite regardless of our faith, and to push for the fact that freedom of worship is an essential service. Places of worship being open, that's an essential service. And I'll end today with a quote, which goes as follows. First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionist, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one to speak for me. So stand up and speak. I've been your host for today, Joyce Katende. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Thank you. Bye, and God bless you.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone.